Okay, so here I'm going to talk about independent and dependent events, and we're going to talk about the two events A and B. This notation means the probability of A given that B happened. It doesn't mean the probability of A divided by B. It means the probability of A given that B happened. So for example, what's the probability if you go fishing? What's the probability of catching a fish given that it's raining outside? Well, if the probability of catching a fish when you go fishing, given that it's raining, equals the probability of catching a fish on any day, that means that the fact that it's raining has no effect on catching a fish. Yeah? Or you could say the probability of catching a fish given that it's sunny out, yeah, and 80 degrees or whatever. If that's the same as just the probability of catching a fish on any day at all, then it means that given that it's sunny out, it doesn't affect the likelihood of catching a fish, because the probability of catching a fish is equal to the probability of catching a fish given that it's sunny. The sun doesn't affect it. If the probability of catching a fish, given that it's sunny out, is not the same as just the average probability of catching a fish, then that means that given that it's sunny out, that affects the probability of catching a fish, the likelihood of catching a fish. If that's the case, then that means this event affects this one. Yeah? If this event has no effect on this, then it's going to equal the probability of A, because it doesn't affect it. They're independent, yeah? One is independent of the other. It has no effect on it. They're totally independent. Here, this one affects this one. The chance of this happening is affected by this. They depend on each other. That's why we say they're dependent. Because now the probability of A is different than the probability of A given that B happened. The probability that a horse race, let's say, what's the probability that your horse is going to win a race given that it's a muddy track and it's raining outside? Well, these things change. They affect things, yeah? So if the rain affects the performance of your horse, then those two events depend on each other. If your horse doesn't care if it's raining or not, it runs the same every time, then they're independent. But that's the basic idea behind dependent and independent events.